Well, welcome to The Pulse, and I have two very special guests today who are going to discuss one of the last topics that is never brought up in polite conversation, which is how we die. And these are two women who are part of a growing, hopefully a growing group of compassionate caregivers called end-of-life doulas. And so I'm happy to welcome today Leanne Austin, an RN and end-of-life doula from Central Washington, and Maisie Ruth Schreffler, who is from the Spokane area. Mm-hmm. Thank you both for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
And we're going to start off by approaching that last taboo. And as I was telling you earlier, since I am a rancher, we raise livestock, and one of the things that you have to face if you raise livestock is that you will have to face death. And it's part of the whole. It's part of life, and you ladies are women who help people face into that and face into the life part.
Exactly.
So why don't you each take a minute to introduce yourselves, and then we'll start with you, Leanne.
Okay. I have been an RN for 32 years and specialized in taking care of the elderly, and I didn't realize until I started my end-of-life doula training that I've actually been an end-of-life doula my entire career. Serving the elderly and definitely serving them at the end of their life. So this was an awakening for me and in just a new step, an opportunity in my career as a nurse, but a non-medical career, so definitely a change in the process for me, but something that I am really enjoying.
So you've brought your experience as an RN to the field, and Maisie, you come as a retired massage therapist, so you've also had some hands-on health care. And how about a little bit about yourself?
So I live in Spokane. I'm from California, actually, but I've been in Spokane for about 11 years, and like Leanne was saying, I've always been a death doula. I just didn't know I had a name. As a massage therapist, I've been on the other end of being a doula. I've brought babies into the world and helped mothers start a life, and now I get the honor of being with people at the end of their life. So I believe it's a beautiful circle, and we definitely need to talk about death more. It's beautiful, and it is part of living. We're all gonna do it.
Yeah.
I think many people are familiar with the idea of a birth doula as someone who's there as that kind of companion caregiver focused on the mother and the family at the time of birth. And so that's a little bit about what you do at the other end of the transition.
I have, I brought with me, we probably don't want to get into it because it's, there's a lot in there, but I have a death kit, which sounds scary. And it basically simplifies and allows people to talk through the whole process of dying. And I have everything in here from helping people be comfortable while they're dying, helping their family members. I support my patient as well as their family members. I do bereavement support as well. And then all the way through the day of death. And our culture, we have really shied away from taking care of our own dead. And I am trying to bring that back to, I guess, popular culture of taking care of our own dead. And so I have everything for a family to either watch me take care of their loved one instead of sending them off to a morgue, or participate with me in bathing and dressing and having a vigil. And I just think it's so important that we get back to our roots, and it's what we've done many, many years ago, and I'd like to see it back on the forefront of our life spectrum, I guess.
Right, and so many people will talk about wanting to see a good death as being at home.
Yeah.
But I know that you as an RN, Leanne, you had experience with long-term care,
Right.
which is a whole different setting.
And I think that the concept of a good death, and Maisie and I have talked about this, and it starts with having a good life.
Yep.
Okay, and so end-of-life doula has life in it. And so in talking about the D word, okay, people don't want to talk about the D word, but you have to talk about the D word. And once you start talking about that, then you can start planning for the L word, which is the life part. And so planning for that good life can help you then plan for that good death part. And Maisie is one of those people that is just very very able to focus and give of herself at that end of life component. And so doulas are all along that spectrum, from before the resident, before the person, the client ever gets the diagnosis of end of life, where they're helping with advanced care planning, to every stage along the way, including that life care planning stage where it is the focus on the life. And so that good death starts with planning that good life. So it's a huge process, but let's talk about death. Let's talk about dying. Let's get those D words out in the open to be comfortable with them. And as providers of end-of-life care and care providers in care facilities, if we're not comfortable saying the D word, no one else is going to be
I'm
comfortable
going
saying
through the
it
big
either.
D and don't mean divorce.
That's true. It used to be that was the D word that you didn't talk about.
Exactly.
Now we're back to the other.
So
The work that you've done with some of the long-term care facilities, you've also found that some of your services as a doula are helpful to the staff as well, because they're dealing with the same situation, that same transition for their residents.
right. And so with change, with all change, not even with death change, but with all change comes a feeling of loss. And with loss comes a feeling of grief. And so sometimes I think as providers in all settings and in all stages, we focus a lot on the residents and the staff or the families, and that's where the focus should be. But I, in my goals, are trying to focus on providing care to those who provide care. And those are the caregivers and the staff in the communities. So I have been connecting with these care communities to see what I can do for them, providing education on death and dying, on change and loss and grief, providing workshops on stress management and self-care and communications, and ways that can build internal and external resources in order to help deal with this change and with this loss.
And this is different from hospice. We need to make that distinction, that hospice is focused on medical care at the end of life, fairly strictly. So
Yeah.
explain a little bit about how you complement hospice as a service.
Hospice and doula care overlap, and it's actually a beautiful dance when you pull them together. Hospice does have a medical base. End-of-life doulas have this beautiful spiritual and emotional thing. There are things that hospice can do that we can't, obviously. They have a doctor and a nurse and things. And then there are things that doula work includes that does
Like-
not include.
Right. So like I'll climb in bed with you and I'll sing with you and I'll pet you and love you and listen to your hurts. And I have journals that I give to my patients. So when I'm not with them, they can journal questions that they have, non-medical, just end-of-life questions that a lot of people haven't talked to anyone about.
Well,
I
and
have-
we've shuttled death out of state,
Yeah.
and out of sight and off stage for so long that we've
And that's
forgotten
sad.
how that works.
And so if
Right.
you can imagine having these amazing resources available, and then hospice's
these.
resources available, and then being able to pull together the things that do overlap with that social support and the emotional support, the web of support that is available to residents, to clients and families can be tremendous. And so being able to have more opportunities in that would be amazing. To be able to bring hospice and doulas together would be wonderful. And that is a process and a goal for us as doulas.
And I read from some of the information that you'd given me that this really was first brought to the U.S. in 2001. It came from, was it Italy? Do I remember correctly?
It was over in Europe.
It
that
was
they finally
European.
pulled this over.
And so it's a fairly new concept here, and I'm happy that we're able to introduce it to the
Right.
to the country with this interview. How does it work out in terms of finance? And I know that it's a leading question because I know that it's not reimbursable, but
Right.
how do you make it work?
So for me personally, I'm not sure what Leanne does, but I have a sliding scale. I don't turn anyone away due to finances. I have an intake form that I will go over with a prospective client or patient, and we go over what their level of needs are. I have a specific fee for that intake interview. It takes about 3 hours. And then from there, we decide what is really necessary for them, for me to support them at the end of their life. And then my fees go accordingly, either by hour or by the month, like 4 visits a month for a specific amount. And again, if somebody doesn't have the means for paying me, I won't charge them. So a lot of my work actually is volunteer work. So yeah,
Okay.
I'm working on a website that will allow me to accept donations from people who want to make sure everybody has an
To
end
make
of life
it more
care.
possible
Yeah.
for you to provide
Right,
that.
for me to
Yeah.
continue doing what I'm doing on a volunteer basis and to be able to cover my expenses as well. So,
Right.
Right.
So there are no government agencies that will pay. So everything is private pay. If you work directly with an agency, that agency can hire you and pay you. Right now, primary participation with hospice is volunteer. Hospices can call you and say, hey, would you be willing to volunteer with a specific client? They can make referrals to doulas and say, hey, give a card to a client and say you might, if you need some extra support. There are doulas who won't work with a client unless they're affiliated with a hospice, so that doula can refer to hospice. I have recently spoken to a hospice in Boise who hired a doula to work for them.
Oh, as part
That
of their
is-
team.
As a part of their team. That is rare, though, in Washington and Idaho. I've only encountered a
Although
couple
it seems
of.
to make sense, really, that you have somebody on the hospice team who
Right.
has the focus of a doula.
It does, however, because there is no way to bill for them, that does come out of hospice funds. And there is a limit to the funds that are available for labor that Medicare or Medicaid provides. So they'll do a cost for the day, and then there is a labor portion of that cost. And so if that money goes to a doula, then of course it's not available for nursing services or caregiving services or.
Well, I
So-
noticed in one of the studies in here that it mentioned a study of birth doulas and better outcomes for mothers, and that a study of the use of doulas at end of life in lower end of life costs. So it seems like there should be, besides certainly the spiritual and emotional case to be made, a financial case to be made if some further study goes into that. Because again, as we were talking before, it's the fear and the anxiety of the unknown
right.
that causes people to make decisions that perhaps if they had better support.
If they brought it up sooner, if it was
They brought-
talked
if it
about.
came- Right, right. And I know that I've read this before, that some of those who are the most likely to make good decisions about not over-treating, are going to be doctors who know, nope, that's not going to, it's not going to take me where I need to be, so we're not doing that. But that's really hard for people. It's a really hard call for people to make, especially about a family member, unless they have, enough information and somebody who's on their side and walking through that with them.
Right, and gently telling them the truth about, the medical field, unfortunately, I will say unfortunately these days, can keep people alive for a really long time, when if their natural process of dying had been talked about and planned, they wouldn't spend their last 6 months on tubes and on a breathing machine just to expire and not have closure and feel in control and have their family members surrounding them, especially with what we've been through with the pandemic. A lot of people are dying alone. And,
Yeah.
and again, I think a lot of it has to do with, in the medical field, which we're grateful for advancements, it's to the point, though, that you can stay alive for a really long time because we're so afraid to die. And your last few days are really spent unconscious and miserable to a degree, and your family members have to make decisions. And if it was talked about ahead of time, if there was someone that could, go in and say, listen, you have control. We can take care of your pain. While you're conscious, let's have a good death. Let's
And let's make the most of these days of life.
Exactly, exactly. And that's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm hoping to do. And
Yeah, and education is such a
Yep.
huge part of that. It's the unknown that makes people afraid. And
we're afraid of pain, and we're afraid of losing control. And the reality is, your pain can be managed at home, and you can have control. You can have control to your last breath.
it's that planning that life journey.
Yeah.
It's knowing in advance the choices that you can have.
Let's
And
have a little talk about
doulas
death.
can come in at any time, and they can come in for families. Even if that individual is not ready, if the family is feeling like they need input and support and guidance, they can call a doula in for them until that person is ready that individual is ready to have those services. Because it is, the concepts, key concepts are that family and client focus, that building of the collaborative team, which the doula does by reaching out to members of the community, that fundamental acceptance, that holistic care. All of these things are key components of end-of-life doula care. And so, I don't know, I just think it's an amazing concept and something that really drew me in after I had a really life-threatening situation happen to me, and I woke up on the other side and went, I need to do something different, and this found me as much as I found it. So,
Well, I think that you've made a good presentation of the whole concept.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here today, and I want to give this last bit for you to each wrap up with. How would someone get a hold of you? And we will put contact information on
Okay.
a runner on the video.
Great.
But how would someone get a hold of you if they're looking for this kind of service?
They can call me, and my number, you can run my number at the bottom of this. It's 509-720-9835. Or they can reach me by email, which is mortalbeloveds with an S at the end @gmail, and we can take it from there. So, and I have clients all over. My husband is a flight attendant, and I fly everywhere. I have clients in Nevada, Reno, Nevada. Yeah, I've been everywhere.
because you can do clients from
So,
a
yeah.
distance. Not all
Yeah.
clients
Right.
require on-site care.
So you can reach me. It's a Spokane number, but I will travel.
Okay. Well, just
Outside
some
of
of that coaching and listening can certainly happen
Yep.
by phone or by
Yeah.
Zoom. We've all gotten used
Exactly.
to using
Yeah.
all sorts of communication now.
Yep. And I'm working on my website. Like I said, I rubbed naked people for a living before I did this, so I don't know how to do technological stuff.
Tech wasn't your thing, so
No.
yeah. And this is a new field and fairly young and very young in Washington. So okay,
Yeah.
so that's how to get a hold of you.
New
and
yet
ancient.
many
Yes, you're right.
years ago.
Ancient,
Yeah, it's
yes.
an
It
ancient.
is ancient.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
always been someone in every family or in every village that
Yeah.
was
We
the
take
person
care
that
of
you
our
Yes,
own.
every
called
village, I
Yep.
love that, yes.
to take care of those.
Okay, well, my phone number as well, but I do have a website. It is wingedjourneydoula.com. The email address is the same, wingedjourneydoula@aol.com. You can run my phone number too, I don't care. As long as it doesn't pop up as spam, I'll answer it. I am in Central Washington. I have spoken with facilities in Idaho. I have talked to places in Seattle, and I am excited. I'm going to be heading to Boise next month to talk to the Idaho Healthcare Administration, so who knows what's going to happen down there.
Well, and that part of that is because a piece of your interest has been in supporting staff at long-term care
Exactly, and that's
and training them in some level of the techniques as well, which
Yes.
is kind of cool.
it'd be lovely if we could get them to integrate some doula philosophies in their care. It's little things that really make a difference that they could put into their practice, even if they can't have a doula on site, to be able to just get some doula things for themselves and then to be able to apply those things to their care as well. So,
And I'm sure there are people right now who are thinking of maybe a certain CNA that had that touch, that was a doula and didn't realize they were,
Yes.
but has that touch.
and to help people that are in crisis, to help you recognize the staff that are really struggling with their stress because of all of the changes. So please reach out.
Okay.
I'm here for you.
You are both very accessible
Yes.
And we have now broken the taboo,
Yes.
and it is okay
Talk about the D word.
It's okay to talk about the D word. Thank you for coming in today and for letting us hear your story about what an end-of-life doula is and what value they can add to a life.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
This is Dave Reynolds with Source Real Estate. Our secret is our 1% listing fee. All the services, marketing, photography, and more for a 1% listing fee, saving you thousands. May the source be with you. 999-8878 and visit sourcerealestate.com.
I was homeless, couch hopping, dealing drugs. I was a meth user and almost died from sepsis. My grandparents told me about the Union Gospel Mission. I was pretty skeptical, but I was also desperate. At UGM, I found my identity. Today, I have a job, my first apartment, and I have a really big passion to give back. Real change is possible. Union Gospel Mission.
The world has changed a lot in 50 years, and Kimley Haygood has changed with it. We still provide our customers with the highest level of service, whether it's financing, construction management, property management and maintenance, leasing, or sales. Our team is here to help you make the best decisions with your real estate.